Welcome back. You're watching Doordarshan News, and the news, of course, we are focusing on Prime Minister Modi, who's held his first ever virtual bilateral summit with the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. He has said that India is committed to strengthening its relations with Australia, which is not only important for the two nations but also for the Indo-Pacific region and the entire world. The Prime Minister has added that the role of the comprehensive strategic partnership will be even more important during this time of crisis when the whole world is facing the COVID-19 pandemic.
मुझे बहुत प्रसन्नता है कि आज हम अपने द्विपक्षीय संबंधों को कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप के रूप में अपग्रेड कर रहे हैं। वैश्विक महामारी के इस काल में हमारी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप की भूमिका और महत्वपूर्ण रहेगी। विश्व को इस महामारी के आर्थिक और सामाजिक दुष्प्रभावों से जल्दी निकालने के लिए एक कोऑर्डिनेटेड और कोलैबोरेटिव अप्रोच की आवश्यकता है। हमारी सरकार ने इस क्राइसिस को एक अपॉर्चुनिटी की तरह देखने का निर्णय लिया है। भारत में लगभग सभी क्षेत्रों में व्यापक रिफॉर्म्स की प्रक्रिया शुरू की जा चुकी है। बहुत जल्द ही ग्राउंड लेवल पर इसके परिणाम देखने को मिलेंगे।
And Prime Minister Modi has said that this is the perfect time to further strengthen relations between India and Australia. He added there are endless opportunities to strengthen our friendship. It also brings with it the challenges to turn this potential into reality and how our relation does become a factor of stability for the entire region.
हमारी सरकार ने इस क्राइसिस को एक अपॉर्चुनिटी की तरह देखने का निर्णय लिया है। भारत में लगभग सभी क्षेत्रों में व्यापक रिफॉर्म्स की प्रक्रिया शुरू की जा चुकी है। बहुत जल्द ही ग्राउंड लेवल पर इसके परिणाम देखने को मिलेंगे।
And the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has said that he's eager to visit India to receive famous Modi hug.
I look forward to this first Australia-India Leaders Virtual Summit today. I wish I could be there for what has become the famous Modi hug, and while not and be able to share my samosas, which I thank you for. We had a bit of fun with that on the weekend. So next time it'll have to be the Gujarati Kishti, which I know is a keen favourite of yours, and you've mentioned to me before. So I'll try that out in the kitchen before next time we meet in person.
And let's now go across to our next guest, Dr. Sriram Cholia. He's an expert in the international relations. Let's go across to him. Thanks very much, Dr. Cholia, for joining us here on Doordarshan News. Of course, we are seeing that bonhomie between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Morrison. How much importance are you attaching to this virtual summit taking place between both the Prime Ministers? Very significant, and especially at this time of, the whole world tackling the COVID-19 pandemic and, of course, other important bilateral matters being taken up.
Yeah, technology has solved our problem because, as you know, the diplomatic calendar has been frozen due to the pandemic and the curbs on international travel and the fears of contagion. So luckily now we are, moving toward this e-summit or online diplomacy. It's in fact an innovation which has been forced upon us by the pandemic. So Scott Morrison was supposed to visit India and spend a whole week, go to multiple destinations, high profile trip. But now instead we are doing this through video conferencing, which is good because, the crucial relationships cannot wait. So the normalization. So I think we decided both sides that we should go for this virtual summit. So this is historical, not only due to the substance, which I will come to, but also due to the method by which this summit is happening. Prime Minister Modi has already done a lot of multilateral summits through online. I mean, we know the SAARC meeting that happened, the G20, and several, and the NAM, non-aligned movement, and so on. But this is the first full-fledged official bilateral delegation to delegation, counterparts meeting across the board, led by the two leaders, All of this happening through online means. So I think this is an innovation worth remembering in the context of the pandemic. Coming to the substance, the upgrade to the strategic, comprehensive strategic partnership is very significant, because earlier it was only called strategic. We added this prefix now to signify and to signal, because summits, at the end of the day, a lot of agreements are signed, exchanged, and then the bureaucracies, they follow up. But the important point is the top leaders are there and are exchanging views directly face to face, and also are signaling to the rest of the world. Now, Scott Morrison interestingly said that Prime Minister Modi's leadership has become a stabilizing influence together with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan. And he also added Vietnam, Indonesia, and the US in the mix. So Australia clearly is signaling that the middle powers, especially in the Indo-Pacific, we share this common space. We need to come together in this moment. And PM Modi also especially said this is the perfect time for this kind of summit. When he meant perfect time, he's talking about this strategic space and the opportunity for stabilizing the Indo-Pacific. So there's a lot of strategic content, geostrategic. PM also mentioned shared geography.
Right.
That's very critical, because this is not, India and some European country. This is not India and some Latin American country. This is not India and some African country. This is actually a country that is part of Asia. It's part of the Indo-Pacific. And so it is right our backyard, So this is a common space, and we are looking to create a balance of power here. I think, as Ambassador Wada was mentioning earlier also, there is a, growing fear about, Chinese hegemony in the region. So Australia is looking for partners. Australia, PM Scott Morrison also mentioned that India is taking charge of the WHO executive board. Now, Australia has played a very, strong advocacy role for investigating the origins of the coronavirus. And there, it has had friction with China, which is also a big partner for Australia. But Australia is looking to diversify. Australia is looking to build partnerships with other major countries in Asia, in the Indo-Pacific, that can help it reduce its dependence on China. So I think I would put this in the larger context where India's significance for Australia is rising, and we are also reciprocating.
Okay. Also, Dr. Cholia, of course, we're seeing the ties being upgraded there, and so a lot of expectations clearly from this very significant virtual summit between both the prime ministers. What big takeaways are you anticipating, from this virtual summit?
Well, one is, of course, the logistical support agreement and the DST. The science and technology, now defense technology. Now, these are going to be the building blocks for this new upgraded comprehensive strategic partnership. We have a similar thing with the US, and with Australia, in almost it's parallel to the US bilateral relationship, the way it is being upgraded, because with the US also we have 2+2 dialogue of foreign ministers and defense ministers, plus regular summits. Now with Australia also we are doing 2+2 plus regular summits. Even the pandemic cannot stop the summits from happening. We are using online technology to go ahead. So I think that is going to be very critical. The interoperability of the militaries, if the bases of the two countries can be shared by the navies of the two sides, it will make a huge difference. There's also the question of the Australian students coming to India, that which Scott Morrison raised, because already we have more than 100,000 Indian students go to study in Australia, Australian universities.
Absolutely.
But Morrison wants in the reverse to have more Australian students coming to India. This is where the Australian government has something called a New Colombo Plan to finance their students to go to other parts of Asia and to study there, to build the cultural ties. So I would expect more, deepening of the educational cooperation. And as far as the scientific and the COVID-19 goes, that's very, very central right now in the present moment. And remember, Australia has been very successful in countering coronavirus. In fact, in the Asia-Pacific, in the Indo-Pacific region, New Zealand and Australia are the two countries that have almost brought it down to zero. No cases, no growth. They've flattened the curve, and they've done it over 3 months. So there is much that we in India can learn from Australia. Also the vaccine development, there are joint projects going on between Australian universities and our scientists. And I would say that, Australia has become a leader in proposing, an alternative strategic environment, because they are wary about the withdrawal of the US from the region. You see, a lot of the traditional US allies, Australia is a US ally in the region, has been worried about the potential, exit of the US or a reduced US footprint in the region. So I think they
Right.
need India,
Okay,
and
Dr.
they are
Cholia.
looking at
Sure.
ways by which we can do this interoperability to a higher level. So I would say these are the highlights. There's a mineral development. Adani, one of our major companies, is developing a major coal
Okay.
mine in Australia. There are lots of mutual
Absolutely.
investment projects also, and that's something that we need to develop. Interestingly, the Indian investment in Australia is about 10 billion, and almost equal to Australian investment in India. So
Okay.
that is quite, because usually we tend to want to receive more investment from other countries, especially richer and developed countries. But in this case, our businesses also are taking stakes in the Australian mining sector. So I think these are ways by which we can, build the synergies,
Right.
because it has to be military,
Sure.
it has to be.
Okay. All right, we'll come back to Dr. Cholia in just a
Are
bit.
also
Let's
part of
go
it.
back to Ambassador Wadhwa, who is also, in fact, joining us here on Doordarshan News. Ambassador Wadhwa, like Dr. Cholia was saying, of course, we can learn a lot as far as tackling COVID-19 pandemic is concerned from Australia, because they have actually reached 0 cases there, Australia and New Zealand, that is. But what would you say, understandably, there's more room for strategic cooperation, there's more room for growth and trade as well. And would you say that Australia can actually collaborate with India to process the rare earth minerals at the Indian locations, and that is going to be very significant between both the countries?
Let me take your last point first, and I think that fits in well with with India's e-mobility program. As you know, Niti Aayog has already earmarked 3 facilities in India for processing of rare earths for this program. Processing rare earths is not a very easy thing to do, because it's a polluting industry, and therefore a lot of precautions have to be taken. A lot of Australian companies have therefore outsourced their processing out to China in the past. Over the last few years, because of the geopolitical situation which has arisen, United States and Australia, as well as Japan, have all got very wary of the situation which is developing, which is depending for a number of inputs which go into critical industries. And therefore, for this reason, there is move towards diversification. We already saw that Linus Corporation has moved its processing to Malaysia, for instance. US itself has undertaken a number of facilities where we can now process rare earths, and this is only going to grow in future.
Okay.
So the Indian government's decision to locate 3 processing facilities in India in the future is a good one. It is also going to cater to the rising domestic e-mobility program,
Sure.
and also the dependence on rare earths which India has at the moment from the outside will continue to lessen. So in that respect, Australia can play a very important role in terms of lithium-ion batteries, which is very important for this program and for its manufacture. There are already a number of companies which have come into India, not on a very large scale, but on a smaller scale. But they're already in operations in India. Again, that is one area
Sure.
in the future.
Right.
And I must mention that out of the 49 critical minerals identified by the Indian ministries for our future, 21 of them are available in Australia.
Right. Yes.
Is a large part of the requirement of India.
Okay.
There is, of course, politically a very good relationship between India and Australia, and therefore Indian companies will be able to invest in Australia also for sourcing.
Okay.
I think there are, coming back to the earlier part of your question, there are at least 20 odd sectors where India and Australia can take this relationship forward. So some of them are, of course, existing sectors, and that includes, coal, that includes mining.
Right, Ambassador Wadhwa. Sure. Sure.
But
Okay. Right.
at the
Well,
same
that's all the time we have for Ambassador Wadhwa. We're falling short of time clearly, but thank you very much for joining us, Ambassador Wadhwa and Dr. Cholia. Thanks very much to both of you for joining us here on Doordarshan News and DD India and sharing your perspective and insights as far as the virtual summit between India and Australia is concerned, the virtual summit between Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Morrison. Thanks very much. And moving on now to our next big story. Well, the Union Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar has termed the killing of an elephant in Kerala as cruel and assured that the culprits will soon be brought to book.
Killing of an elephant in Kerala is shocking. If somebody gives firecrackers in pineapple and they get burst in the mouth, and therefore if elephant dies, this is very cruel and this is not Indian culture. Therefore we have taken this killing in Kerala very seriously. For solving the animal-human conflict situation, we have already taken up fodder and water augmentation in forest areas. But this kind of killing is absolutely unacceptable, and we have already deputed our senior officers there, and we will nab the culprits and punish them.
So very strong words they're coming in by the Union Minister Prakash Javadekar as far as that horrible tragedy, that heinous crime of killing that elephant in Mallapuram in Kerala is concerned. In fact, assuring that the culprits behind this heinous crime will be brought to book. With that, it's a wrap on this newscast. Thanks for being with us.